and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I've got another cool classic bike review for you guys, and this one is Honda's 1980 through 1981 CB400T Hawk, or CB400N as it was called in Europe. In this road test review, I'm going to be giving a little bit of the history of the Hawk 400. I'm also going to go over the specs on the bike, and in a little bit I'm going to gear up and I'll take the camera along and we'll take this bike out on the road to see how it rides. If you're like me and you like classic bikes from the 70s and 80s, please feel free to like and subscribe. I feature lots of classic bike content on this channel. In 1980, the Hawk 400 got a complete restyle, and it looked a lot more like the CB400F Supersport and the CB900F. I'm a real fan of the styling. I really think this is a cleanly styled bike, and I like this generation of Hawk better than the previous generation. In order to meet the tightening US emission standards in 1980, Honda had replaced the 32mm carburetors that were on the previous Hawks, and they replaced those with 30mm carburetors on this bike that also have an accelerator pump built in. Looking at the specs of the bike, the CB400T features a 395cc air-cooled 3-valve per cylinder single overhead cam motor. It's a twin-cylinder motor with a 270-degree firing order. It features a 9.3:1 compression ratio, as well as a dual 30mm CV-type carbs. It also has a slick-shifting 6-speed transmission and chain final drive. The frame on the Hawk is a diamond-type frame. It's got a steel backbone, and it uses the engine as a stressed member. In the braking department, it features a single-disc brake up front that's acted on by a single piston caliper, and it features a large drum brake in the rear. Suspension-wise, up front, it has conventional forks, and they are non-adjustable up front. Out back, it has the conventional dual shocks, and those are adjustable for spring preload only. Wet weight on the Hawk was right at 398 pounds. It has a 31-inch seat height on it, and it features a 3.4-gallon gas tank. Performance-wise, the Hawk clocked off a 14.3-second quarter mile at 89 miles an hour, and the top speed was right at 98 miles an hour. The CB400T made 39 horsepower at 9,500 RPM and 23 foot-pounds of torque at 8,000 RPM. All right, enough talk. What is this classic Honda Hawk CB400 like to ride? I'm going to gear up. I'll bring the camera along. Let's find out together. Let's ride. I'm currently riding Honda's 1980 Hawk CB400T. And it's a beautiful day in Pennsylvania. Even though it's February, it's about 50 degrees right now. And so I'm just taking advantage of the nice weather to get out and film this review. Right off the bat, I'm noticing this is a smaller bike. It's very lightweight. And I'm also noticing how smooth this bike is. There's just a very mild tingle through the handlebars, but it is a very, very smooth twin-cylinder bike. And even in top gear, I'm just giving it a little bit of gas here. It does nicely. It pulls very nicely. It's comfortable at highway speed. It changes direction easily, but it's not darty or flighty. The suspension is firm, it's not wallowy. And I'm used to riding bigger bikes, and so for me the challenge on the smaller bikes is always to keep them in the proper rev range. This bike really likes about 5,000 RPM and up. It has smooth power below that, but it just takes off very, very cleanly above 5,000 RPM. Nice throttle response. And the seating position on this, on a lot of bikes, I've got to go in and tweak the handlebars and mess around with things to get them comfortable for me, and I really like the seating position on this in stock form. The European CB400N had even lower handlebars, a little bit more horsepower, and dual disc brakes up front, and I bet that was a hoot to ride. Now, because the roads are cold and there's a little bit of gravel on the roads, I'm not going to really be hammering it, but we'll take it through some twisties, see how it does. I'll get on it a little bit here in a minute. Yeah, just beautiful handling. And then there's that nice acceleration up top. The braking is a little bit wooden, and this would benefit from an upgrade to a steel braided brake line. That definitely has nice performance. I'm also really surprised at the carburation on this. Even on a colder day, it doesn't act super lean. Very nice. For a small displacement machine, this really picks up nicely. I'm surprised, actually. Very smooth power. It really likes it in the higher RPM range, and it's surprising how strong that pulls. The handling on this bike is such that it feels like you can't really go into a corner fast enough to really push it in the handling department. Transitions very easily. And this thing would be an absolute blast on a very tight back road with lots of corners. On a small bike like this, I imagine a smaller, lighter rider would really be able to fly on it. I'm on the north side of 200 pounds, and so it still pulls me with authority. But if you had somebody who was about 50 pounds lighter, this thing would be really, really quick.
Oh, that's fun. And compared to the leader bikes that I normally ride, it is so fun to keep this bike on the boil. And even in street riding, you can really wring it out quite a bit, and you're not carrying ultra legal speeds. Don't get me wrong, it will exceed the speed limit easily, but it's just not a bike that you need to be doing that all the time on. And it's a bike that, because you're revving it up, even the pedestrian speeds feel very lively. It's exciting to ride. Man, what a hoot. That's fun. One thing I noticed right off the bat is coming into some really gnarly, bumpy corners while under braking, this bike maintained its composure, and that's a situation that could really upset a lot of bikes, and especially the vintage bikes. And I'll be honest, I have ridden the newer single-cylinder Honda CB400, and this bike so outshines that bike in every aspect, from performance to styling to just the suspension composure is incredible on this bike in comparison. Honda did such a nice job on this classic CB400T. Way to go.
All right, man, what a lot of fun. There's not a lot of bikes that are in the commuter class, in kind of the lower range of the spectrum, that are enjoyable to ride. There's a lot of bikes in this segment that make decent commuters and they make decent transportation, but they don't have that element of fun, that something that gets you up early in the morning and makes you want to get out and ride. Fortunately for Honda, they really hit it out of the park with the CB400T. It has great styling, it has excellent handling, it has a nice surge of power that really kicks in above 6,000 RPM. Man, it's got very nice throttle response to it. Even though the suspension is very basic, they really did a good job on the spring rates and the damping up front, as well as the spring rates and damping in the back. And so even though this is an old bike, even though it has non-sophisticated suspension, it really does ride nicely, it handles nicely, and it's more than adequate to get the job done. It doesn't pogo around or really dive heavily under braking to the point where it's dangerous. I purchased this bike recently as a non-runner. The last inspection date on this is from 1983, so this bike probably sat for a long time. But I have gone through it from front to back and serviced it and gone through and made sure that everything is safe and that this bike is ready to get out on the road. And if you want to see the videos that I've done, you can certainly click the link above, and it's a whole playlist of the videos from the day that I bought it until now, and you can see the process of what it takes to get one of these classic bikes back on the road. The Honda Hawk is a motorcycle that beginners could ride with confidence, and it has enough sporting potential that they could learn how to ride, and then as they progress in their skill, they could kind of focus on their riding ability and kind of being able to go faster and even do some light track days with it. Because it only has a single front disc brake, I would probably recommend going with some steel braided brake lines for the front brake, and I think that would really improve the feel of the braking and the braking power that gets to the front wheel. I'm a tall rider at 6'4", and this bike still fits me pretty well. I can ride it for an hour or so at a time without being uncomfortable. It does well at highway speeds, it does well at lower speeds, and it absolutely shines in the corners. And it's such a joy to run through the corners and keep the RPM up and keep it in the power band. The 6-speed transmission works great, and I'm looking forward to getting out and putting more miles on this classic Honda. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.